It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, we are talking about the way men are taught by society to deny needs. And this is going to probably be part of an ongoing conversation because my brothers in the Antichrist, we got to talk about some of this stuff. It's really interesting to see different groups of men not believe that other groups of men are real. But the response to the content last week actually did take that form that, you know, guys who are more, well, let's say less in denial about certain things were express the belief that the, mating and resources guys actually aren't real. Meanwhile, the mating and resources guys responded to me in comments when I said, like, look, never speak that way if you ever want to feel the touch of the woman in your life with, oh, I don't talk about this in real life. I can just be my true self online. These are things I'm passionate about. And the disconnect to me between I'm passionate about the idea that all social interactions just come down to mating and resources. This is doublethink. The mating and resources theory is thoroughly devoid of passion. So what this statement says is I am passionate about there being no passion in human interactions. It's inception, right? And to me, this just speaks to deep denial of one's own needs based on a lifetime of conditioning in that regard. And I'm doing this just trying to help. When I was preparing for this, that Cordonis got me the Wicked Steelcase DVD for an early birthday present. And so preparing for this video, I just keep thinking, don't be offended by my frank analysis. Think of it as personality dialysis, right? And Galinda was, of course, popular. You're gonna be popular. Not if you talk about mating and resources. Because not only does no woman want to be thought about just a resource for you to get offspring that you also treat as a resource. Because you notice the problem with the mating and resources theory? There's no people in it other than the speaker. The self is the only thing that exists. Solipsism, it's solipsism all the way down. There's no recognition that these other people in the equation are people, not just an extension of your own ego. Remember, don't be offended by my frank analysis. Think of it as personality dialysis. And help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. My brothers in the Antichrist, please seek help for this. Please. I think some of you need much deeper therapy than I can provide via peer counseling or, personal coaching. And I say that seriously. Because when you are talking about human interactions in such an emotionless way, and you're part of this cult of science and analytics, denying the emotional realities of humanity, this is trained. We don't start that way. We have a whole fucked up human history going back to the Enlightenment and before that of, ironically, culture trying to coerce and control people into not having emotional needs. The minute we got industrialization, it was all factories, be good workers, right? And good workers don't have feelings, right? There's a reason Immanuel Kant's big work is a critique of pure reason. One of the big things about philosophy all the way down is, yes, you can try to create a utopia where human beings are perfectly rational beings. But it's not true. We're not. We have emotions. And the only way to truly be stoic, this is a tangent, but I'm a bit pissed at the way that stoicism is being perverted to attack traditional masculinity. I don't like it because if you read Marcus Aurelius or any of the other Stoics, there's a ton of emotion in there. Stoicism is about not being overwhelmed by your emotions, not having none. What we're dealing with men and boys right now is not Stoicism. If it was, we'd be great. Marcus Aurelius was not the military guy. He was the city planning guy, right? He was the benevolent leadership guy. He was in touch with his feelings. And, saying suffering is temporary, this too shall pass, is not saying, I ain't suffering. That's the difference. What we train men to do is not stoicism. What we train men to do is deny their needs. Because recognizing one's emotional needs is vulnerable, and it violates this stupid masculine ideal of the lone cowboy, the lone samurai, the people that don't need nobody. Now, of course, in those stories, they actually do need people, but there's this idea of just this solitary figure who don't need nothing from no one, totally, self-sufficient. And that's an archetype that isn't... It's something I had to step away from as an ideal, because I really internalized that ideal of, you're shit at being a woman, or maybe you're not one, so you're not going to have these things, so you just have to be an island onto yourself because everybody else will fuck you eventually. And it turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you never let anyone in, if you never let anybody be there for you, then yeah, you're going to live a very solitary existence. And the number of guys I see just reject help from people who go, look, I'm really trying to help you, man. And instead seek out internet bullshit. Don't try to base interpersonal relationships on sociology or evolutionary psychology. If you've ever talked to a sociologist or evolutionary psychologist, you'll understand why. Okay? The thing about these mating and resources papers is that they're designed to be incredibly detached. And it's actually something of a racist tradition because, it goes back to studying tribes in the Amazon and Africa and all that stuff. And look at the primitives, right? We reserve philosophy for white cultures and mating and resources for everybody else. So let's get off that. Okay. It's not helping anybody. Because that false sense of superiority or supposed superiority, that it's the same reason I don't like girl power. It's the same reason I don't like the black girl magic stuff. And me saying I don't like it isn't intended to say it's wrong or you shouldn't like it. I'm just saying why I don't like anything like, boys rule, girls drool, or that kind of stuff is Black girls shouldn't have to do magic. Black girls should allowed to be people, right? Same with black boys. And I do think that a lot of the self-esteem initiatives that came up, they were coming in for like kids in grade 9 when I was graduating high school. And I remember seeing what some of them were doing is like, this is some bullshit and not life. And I just think that all of this affirmational stuff, it didn't meet a need to feel like you've earned a place somewhere. And that I hear from a lot of guys, there's this double think of seeming to reject masculine hierarchy with the whole Sigma male thing. But then all of the language that is used props up this idea of an intense masculine hierarchy. And masculine hierarchy is amazing if there's another guy you look up to who can talk sense into you when you start going mating and resources. Oh, I don't talk to this people like this in real life. This is just my private passions. I can be myself online. That means you're lying to everybody in real life, even if it's just a lie of omission. That's a big problem. And there are reasons for this, right? I do think that a healthy masculine hierarchy could help a lot of guys, because obviously guys are seeking out some sort of, mentor, and they can't find one in real life. So they end up with Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. And I mean, the thing that I really get jammed up with Peterson, personal lunatic ravings aside, okay, sorry for the mental health stigma, is that all the way back, his whole stuff, when you get out of Jung and archetypes and mapping meaning, okay, on the one hand, you read maps of meaning and you see this guy who really, really desires the sublime. He truly loves the idea that things have meaning. And meaning defies, mating and resources. Meaning is this thing that goes beyond the physical. It's how you chain things together to tell yourself a story about your own life. And human beings do need meaning. The problem when you've got somebody like Jordan Peterson, who has clearly never known happiness because he doesn't know how to meet his own emotional needs. He creates this whole house of cards that says happiness isn't possible. You should only focus on duty. It's not true, okay? If you're not creating connections with people where everybody has a duty to each other, and that isn't just about resources and how much you can produce, no amount of duty in the world is going to give you a sense of satisfaction. You're going to end up in a coma in Russia because you tried to kick benzos cold turkey. So, and very, very high doses of benzos. We don't want this. Now, where does this denial of needs come from? Well, it starts in childhood, right? You have this need. The need chronically does not get met. So then you not only have the need, but the disappointment of not having the need met, right? And so denying that the need is there is a strategy. And reformed person who did this, okay? More on that in a bit. Denying the need is there is a strategy to, you can't get your need met no matter what, right? The adults in your life are not getting it for you. A lot of the time they turn it around on kids where you can't have this and it's just your own fault because we watched the Witch, the movie with Anna Taylor-Joy, on the server on Friday, and the dad character is like, this is all my fault, I have sinned, but my children are naturally evil, right? It's like, yup, that was my childhood. And so you avoid the disappointment by denying the need. And it wasn't until I was like 18, 19 years old, but a therapist, it was a student therapist too, said, it sounds like you've had a lot of disappointments in life. And I had to realize that the idea of disappointment was a foreign concept. This wasn't something I had felt like I could feel because it was just too big, right? And if you think about how we treat needs, it's, needy is an insult, right? There's a difference between having needs and being needy. And the problem with not acknowledging our own needs is if we don't, if we're not, personally self-destructive, which in men manifests as a lot of internalized misandry that you believe the world is telling you, but it's not the world. The world has a lot of different opinions. You're choosing the ones to focus on because of the way your family treated you. And you're so caught up in this, oh, but my family loved me, that you can't admit that, one person on Feedback Friday made a comment about, I'll try to pull it up here. I wasn't expecting to use it, but, somebody can love you and not be great for you, right? Love has to come with responsibility. People can't use, well, I love you as mind control, right? And so people get identified, there are these people who deny all their emotional needs and create this identity of sacrifice, and they get more and more and more and more drained. And then you get, and they're terrified of being burdens, right? I count myself in this. And then you have the people who get defined by, well, I have anxiety, I can't do it. And anxiety becomes their entire personality. And they train everyone around them to, everything stops when they go, my anxiety. The problem is people can't just stop all the time. So eventually that person ends up getting ignored. And it's this spiral, right? So nobody's getting their needs met because we were raised in codependencies. And we know that denying your own needs leads to not being able to experience your emotions. You start feeling, not alive, right? You start feeling this sense of unreality. Nothing seems real. Nothing seems to matter. That meaning that people need disappear from life. It's just going through the motions. What's the point? And so the defense mechanisms that we developed to get out of childhood, right, to survive, is denying us from living. And I see a lot of men, because I know the signs, right? I was there. You're a burden. You ask for anything. You're a problem. Stop crying. I'll give you something to cry about. Toughen up. Learn to handle criticism. You know, all the you are nothing. Make something of yourself, right? The world is going to throw impossible odds at you. Do it anyway. Well, if you can do it, then the odds aren't impossible. Words have meaning. Impossible means you can't. And human beings are designed to connect. There's a reason that we have physiological things that show how we are feeling, right? You know, snakes don't cry for a reason, because snakes actually are kind of lone predators, right? They hang out in the trees, they go, they eat something, they go back and hang out in the trees. I quite like snakes. They're cool. But, like, you know, there's a reason snakes don't emote much. Whereas humans, we are an incredibly social group. We cry to show we're sad. You know, we can read. Some people have more trouble reading facial expressions than others, but we have facial expressions so that others know what we're feeling. We have this for a reason. If you want to get into science and analytics, you have to pay attention to this stuff first, right? And we do this so we can cooperate. And we have, you know, expanded our lifespans greatly, sure, but we've also created really great art on the idea of meaning. You know, what does it matter how long you live if there's no meaning to your life, if you don't have some inherent worth? And the difficult thing with, you know, recognizing you've got unmet needs is when you first do it, it's so overwhelming. And so then people, you know, deflect and project. And I don't need this. It's you. It's you. The world hates men. The world prefers women. Women have it easy, right? Women have it easier than men. Women control dating. This is all meaning. This is not fact. And this is all just, I'm not to blame. They're to blame. And it's not helping you. Any broad statement like that applies to 50% of the population, we know it's wrong more often than it's right, because intra-sex difference, meaning sex among differences among men, differences among women, outweigh intersex differences in all these things, right? So that is keeping guys stuck. These blame games. These, it's not me, it's women. It's not me, it's society. It's not me, it's mating and resources. It's keeping you stuck. It's keeping you stuck from really hitting that acceptance point of, no, this is me. These are my needs, and they haven't been met. And we get into this stupid thing, confusing intimacy and sex. Because sex seems easy. You know, Bloodhound Gang, let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. We're not just animals, right? These dating and emotional intimacy is way more complicated than just the mechanics of sex. You can get sexual gratification through masturbation. You don't need a partner. You don't, you know, the idea, and when you get into, you know, actually looking at the research on incels, not the bullshit insult that people use on the internet, but actually self-identified incels, even if they use a sex worker, they still consider themselves involuntarily celibate. And a fairly large percentage of incels, that is their reality, because they weren't desired, right? It's they paid someone for it. And I mean, that's pretty low self-esteem right there, because first of all, a lot of sex workers do that job because they like sex. And a lot of sex workers will turn down certain clients if, you know, it's really disgusting for them. But this idea of being desired, that is meaning. That is beyond just physical procreation and stuff. That's meaning. And yeah, it's good to be desired. It's good to be valued. And I do think that people, because the one not vulnerable form of desirability that men can say they want is sex, which is stupid, you know, but it's this safe thing. Either I want to be a businessman, meaning I'm rich so people look up to me, or sex. Instead of, you know what, I would really want good friends. You know, you don't hear guys out there going mating and resources for friendship, right? It's only demanding sex of women. Like I said on Friday, like, sex me, woman. I'm not even saying please, because please is for woman. Sex me. Like, it's sad. And that is, and then a woman does it. It's like, well, you didn't want it enough. Like, this is intensely low self-esteem and intensely low self-worth centered in unmet emotional needs. Because how do you ever expect someone to desire you when that is the shit coming out of your mouths or keyboard? Like, that is the shit you truly believe. There's nothing to connect to there. You're seeing people as things. And you probably see yourself as a thing, so you don't really see the problem with it. But in order to get your emotional needs met, you have to have a full range of emotions, which means you need to admit they're there. And that includes the negative ones, like grief, like despair, like vulnerability. And we teach men that vulnerability is weakness instead of an opportunity to be brave. And trust me, as somebody who does this stuff and, you know, makes an ongoing choice to be vulnerable instead of just being tough. And I'm a pretty tough motherfucker, but, you know, that's come from a lifetime of getting knocked around. And it's a choice for me to come out here and say something hurts when it hurts. But I can't, you know, avoid doing that and then ask you guys to do it. That would be hypocritical. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of the manosphere things sit. I have no vulnerabilities because I have this car and I have this, you know, shiny shaved head and I have this six pack, and who the fuck cares? You know, women care. No, women really don't, right? If it's mating and resources, then the only, you know, thing that matters is resources, not your abs. You know, oh, but that's the mating part. Nah, you look at anything from the women's perspective. You look up guys that got caught in romance scams. They do not look like Marvel superheroes, okay? The charm that these guys perform is mimicking emotional presence to try to get money out of, you know, women. What needs to be developed is a common language for expressing emotional needs. And this is why I, you know, came out so early in favor of not demonizing video games, or opposed to demonizing video games. There we go. But I do think a lot of guys express themselves through talking about these characters, right? I mean, I'm surprised how many guys just love Olivier from Trails in the Sky. Like, I'm like, okay, really surprising. Because, I mean, the character's introduced, played for laughs, and, you know, he's human Pepe Le Pew. And I think it's interesting that so many guys are like, is best. Like, okay, this is eye-opening. Similarly, there's a lot more awkwardness and vulnerability seen as kind of heroic characteristics in Japanese media. When the young boy hero encounters something involving feelings and he's like, oh, right? He's like, oh, and he's like, oh, he's blushing and he's awkward. And, everybody's like, oh, we feel for him. You see that a lot more in modern Japanese media than you do in Western media. And part of that is because this whole stupid woman is reward thing came out there, and the idea that you can't have Peter Parker really, really, really liking Mary Jane anymore for some reason. You got to break him up and have him go back with Black Cat. And like, Black Cat was supposed to be the temptation, right? Not, oh, Peter is a baller because he got both of them. Like, no, the whole love triangle thing was supposed to be a morality play, right? You sometimes in life you gotta pick, and that's why the way they handled Witcher 3 was genius. Talk about a game that did some subtly profound things with men and relationships, right? Because if you tried to have both Triss and Yennefer, you ended up with neither, because that was never gonna work out with those two women. They just got too much history for that to ever work. They were rivals in everything. No, not gonna work. And I mean, one of the reasons I like Yennefer of Vengerberg so much in the books and games, not that shitty Netflix show, is that she is a very, very interesting character. But she is completely emotionally checked out. And that's why I think she's bad for Geralt. And why, in the games, Triss is kind of different in the games than the books. But in the games, Triss is a better partner for Geralt because Yen is just self-destructive. She's almost exclusively about power, and talk about somebody who really denies her needs. She doesn't really know how to stretch that maternal muscle, that comes out some with Ciri. But, because of Yen's past and all the stuff she's carrying around, she can't quite form attachments to people in a way that we would consider healthy. And that makes her a great character, not a great partner. But there's an example of, it's almost like an inversion of the femme fatale trope but it goes back to sort of like Morgan Le Fay and things like that, where, and this is strictly the way they portrayed her in The Witcher 3 and some in the books, but, she cut something off in herself. She made choices to pursue power because her life sucked. And one of the things I didn't like about the Witcher Netflix show is they rolled around in her suffering when she was younger instead of, I think the real Yennefer in the books and the games would rather die a horrible death than people know that about her. That is something she keeps really hidden away. It's a core part of her, but she pretends to be past it, and she's not meeting her emotional needs, right? Whereas Triss just had to stop being a fucking doormat, which was kind of cool. But, then you get Ciri, who, I'm looking forward to the next Witcher game because there's a lot to explore with Ciri, because she was used as a foil for so many other characters as opposed to being kind of centered. I mean, there was that really strange book where everything got esoteric, but you know what I mean? Like, there's how do you connect to people, or do you connect to people in this very strange existence? I mean, one of the great tragedies of Witchers is they're so physically tortured that they self-objectify. And, as the process of becoming a witcher, it's very painful. And so we have a lot of war stories that, sever connections and deny connections. And we see this as noble and tragic, but that's the thing. It's tragic. Tragedies don't end well. We need more examples of noble, happy endings for men. Because if there's no roadmap, if there's no, how do I follow this path? And, that's why I say that male hierarchy done right, not the way, there's a winner and then everybody else is a loser. No, just sort of comparing and having somebody you can go to who you think is further along than you and go, hey, I need some guidance here. Even having peers that you can talk to, but a lot of men don't have those. And so they end up on the internet that fill their head with bullshit and just encourage them to deny their own needs some more. And that's that bad. So how do you connect to your needs? Well, you got to admit you have them, right? Like, you want companionship, then you got to get the mating and resources language out of your fucking mouth and out of your head. You got to admit that what you want is emotional connection, and you have to accept the vulnerability that you are not in control of both sides of that. That involves another person. That's why it's special. And yeah, sometimes you are going to get rejected. And that's where the masculine ideal of humility comes in, which is another thing that is horribly bastardized by modern lexicon. It's up there with stoicism. Humility doesn't mean not being able to take a compliment. It doesn't mean not thinking you're good at anything. It's recognizing that you are fallible and you have limits and things are not going to go your way all the time, but that's okay. Sometimes they will. And what actual humility does, and this is what I had to learn with the whole dealing with, almost 2 decades of, a mass disappointment that I wasn't feeling, is you're going to feel every emotion under the sun with that. That's okay. You don't have to do anything about it except work through it. But you got to acknowledge you're there. And it's not a failing to have feelings. They're there. They're feedback. They're telling you something. You don't have to get a big stick and beat people every time you feel bad. There are other ways of handling it. It's okay. And that's what I thought those, Peter Parker and Mary Jane stories were about. The idea that the hero didn't get the girl right away. I thought that was giving guys encouragement to, keep trying. And the fact that a lot of these characters now have like a previous partner, like Gwen Stacy or Lana Lang. I was like, okay, so even superheroes, it doesn't work out for them. They're still superheroes, right? One failure doesn't define you. It's not even a failure. It's just a mismatch. It didn't connect, right? And we fuck over guys so much with making the friend zone seem bad and, not really, really commodifying relationships with women where it only counts if you sex. And it's like, Jesus Christ, there's so much more to life. There is so much more to life than that. And if you're too narrowly focused on that, you miss all the cool side quests. It's like speed running something. Like, all right, you got through it super fast, but you missed all this extra stuff, right? And that's something to think about. Everyone's idea of fulfillment is different. It isn't mating and resources. Sorry, it's not. First of all, those are 2 big categories. But also, there's more to it than that. There's feeling accepted, there's feeling understood, there's feeling supported. And all of that is a process of building relationships and being accountable. And there's a lot of great masculine virtues that are really useful in building connections between people, right? Like, it's okay to want to do things for people. It's even okay to do things hoping someone will like you, as long as it's not a demand, right? There's a lot to build on. But the first thing you have to do is figure out what your values are and figure out what your needs are. Because if you don't do that, you can't figure out how to meet your needs and live in accordance with your values. And you're going to have a whole bunch of people telling you how you should live your life instead of what's going to make you feel fulfilled. And then you're going to get bogged down by duty, and your map of meaning becomes this big scribble that doesn't do you any good. Right? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching. Manly Mondays. And if you want to talk further about this stuff, Leanna Care's link is in the chat below, or look up your local men's group. There are some really good ones where you can talk this stuff out. Thanks for watching.